Thanks and thanks. Really, it's like to get invited on a free holiday where all I have to do is concentrate on stuff that I'm interested in, presented by, you know, you guys. That's amazing. As you can see, I'm a music teacher from London. You know, my primary interest in engaging in any kind of research or activity is really for my own means. I want to find out when I hear something which sounds great, why does it sound great? Can I learn why? Can I do it myself? Can I use it in my own composition so that I sound great? You know, that's pretty selfish. And sometimes the research stops at the point where I get a useful answer for myself, correct or incorrect, and I don't deal with data sets and meta-analyses and things. So I would like to start with a little bit of a sing-along, if that's okay. But you're going to ask why, so perhaps I should introduce what the paper is about. We hear this term clave very often. We hear an English translation of the term clave as timeline, and people have written about this, and a bunch of you are engaged in investigating this. So I want to give definitions from my point of view, just to clarify what I'm going to do. First, the instrument, which we call the clave. Originally in Cuba, as Ortiz has kind of noted, it was the clavo. Clavo is a peg used in shipbuilding. And it was a wooden peg, and people picked up the peg and hit it with another peg. And this is where the instrument has come from, at least in Cuba. It's not that there are not other ways of arriving at this instrument. The term clave, which the Spanish speakers will tell us, it kind of means secret code. So it's very convenient, that the word clavo and clave were similar and whatever. So what are you doing with that? And it's, I'm playing the clave, I'm playing the secret code. It's like, well, it's a clave. Oh yeah, well, whatever. Who knows how it came about? But that's the one definition, the first definition of that term, the instrument. The second definition is the phrase, or any phrase that an instrument would play, which it does something for the community. It defines the cycle. How long is a rhythmic cycle? What is a beat? Because you have an association, which we found from the bouncing babies, that once you've heard this rhythm and you've been bounced in this manner, next time you hear this rhythm, after a certain exposure, your brain is replacing, the missing information, which is the beat you've been bounced to, and people who, the ones of us who've attached electrodes to brains, then we find out that this is true, and I'm very grateful for that. Then it's also telling you about the divisions of the beat, whether it falls into, there are 4 divisions in a beat or 3 divisions a beat. And actually something else. There's a substructure of the music, and that's the thing which I'm going to talk about. That these rhythms are there not just as a convenience, or only as a convenience to help people locate themselves within music which they may not know, because you could have 500 different songs in a repertoire, but only one rhythm which is played on a clave or a related instrument to locate the audience and give them basically to let them understand time. But it's actually telling us something more. So we're going to try a little sing-along to see if we can understand this thing, before I deal with the concept of clave. This is what the actual phrase represents. Whichever different phrase it is, it's representing something which is kind of big. So shall we try? Sing a long time. Okay. Here we go. We just need to sing the first line of this song. I've presented it I presented it in English, and I present in Portuguese. And the versions the exact phrasing that I've chosen, well, actually I transcribed from other people. It's just, just to make things easy for us. And for those who don't read notation well, I'll have a go. It's our starting note. And the first one, if you could sing in English in the top, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, each one she passes goes. Oh, great. Okay. So let's try it again. I'm going to accompany you on the piano, if that's okay. Just for just to see if what happens. Right. Is your starting note? Yeah. 1. I hope you excuse me after. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Did I do okay? No, really? I'm asking for, judgment. Did I do okay accompanying you? You say no. He says no, which is interesting, and most people say yes. Some people are like, what? Okay, let's try the other version. Yeah? Okay, so maybe you have to sing. Yeah? The same notes but different words, and if you can't sing Portuguese, don't worry, just listen. I'll sing along, yeah? 1, 2, 3, go. Olha que coisa mais linda, mais cheia de graça, ela menina que vem, que passa, num doce balanço, caminho do mar. Okay, I'll do the same thing on the keyboard. Yeah? And you can try, so whoever can sing. 1, 2, 3, go. Does that feel good? Is that nice? Yeah. Is it better than the other one? Yeah. Let's try the other one again, just to be sure. Yeah? 1, 2, English, go. Okay. And better, worse, the same now? You're more comfortable with it? You say? What do you say? But was it better than the first time you sang in English? You're saying yes. Do you know why? Does anybody, sorry, there's a little data collection. How many people think that felt better the second time we sang in English? And the people who think, no, it just sounded the same as when we sang in English. Yeah? And did it feel better the first time? The first time we sang in Portuguese. Let's sing again in Portuguese. Let's see what happens. You need the words. Okay, let's sing. In Portuguese, okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. Sounds better, sounds worse. Does it sound good? Okay. Is it okay? You say it's okay, and is it different from the first time we sang in Portuguese? And so who's saying no? I'm saying no, and some people saying yes, it's different. Some people saying yes, it's different. Is it different for you? It's different, and they're different. I've been playing a game with you, but I have to do this in order to understand my audience so that I communicate properly. Here we go. This is what's going on. In the way that we have structures of pitch, chords and harmony and stuff, which we understand, concepts of tension, release, agreement, disagreement. We have a concept of reference. We have the same thing in rhythm. And this is how you've just sung, in fact, and I'll explain. The melody at the top, and underneath that melody, I've extracted the melodic accents, which form a pattern. So first in English, tall and tan and young and lovely the girl from. They're forming part of a kind of a pattern which repeats, yeah, which is, we kind of understand the concept that maybe we have these things, grooves, they repeat. So in the next line, I've shown that we call it, colloquially in the jazz community that I belong to, we say those are the weights. What are the weights of the melody? The melodic accents of the melody? Okay, they happen to map onto long notes and peaks and so on. And the stress of the words, in fact, because these are the same thing. So the weights plus the beat, that's like me saying your reference, this is the beat. That's like the roots of chords, for example, or the tonic, or I don't know what you want to call it at the moment, plus any specific tension which happens within that beat. So, for example, this tension, that is a little less than this tension. Cat, yeah? One is, I mean, someone will tell me why, but they sound, different for me. So I'm suggesting that there's a hidden, no, it's not a hidden substructure, but there's a structure underneath that. And I've given you, for your first lesson, 2 chords only. The minus, which is the static, the less tense chord, rhythmic chord. Yeah, we call the plus and minus the rhythmic chords. That, this is a minus, and the plus has more tension. Cat, and someone will say it's syncopated, and I'm saying, yeah, great, we're talking about the same thing. Now, what I did to you, I've given both examples. You can actually see that the top, the example in English, the structure, which I've identified in that process of the weights plus the beat, showing me, okay, that belongs to these two simple chords. How I arrived at the chords, it's like, it's a long story, so let's not worry too much right now. The expression in English and the expression in Portuguese are actually rhythmically different in the versions which I've given and which you actually already sang. What I did on the piano, and why you're like, oh, it sounds better or it sounds different. So let's do it again, just see if you understand now, having experienced this. If I give the wrong accompaniments, put the wrong rhythm underneath you, which has disagreement, I make you sound and feel bad because you register, maybe not intellectually, but you register the disagreement. So let's try first the top example in English 2 times. Once where I agree, I play the correct structure, and the guitar accompaniment written in the second bar at the top. Jang, jang, to get, dun, dang, jang, jang. This way of playing guitar, it shows the beat and it shows the chords, the rhythmic chords. So let's try that. First I play correctly. Yeah, maybe I'll play a little louder, you can say it. So maybe we sing again. 1, 2, 3, go. Understand that? And then let me play incorrectly and see if you register the difference. So I'm going to play, in fact, this structure, the one that fits the weights when the music is sung in Portuguese, and it will fight this that completely opposed. It's kind of the equivalent of me learning this melody and this accompaniment, but playing like this. They don't fit together correctly. But for someone who's sensitive to rhythm, when the rhythms don't fit together correctly to make the appropriate energy for the music, I say, oh no, this is not right for this music. There's an understanding of agreement, there's an understanding of disagreement, and some music has more agreement and some music has more disagreement. That's just the way it is. It's about the style, but you'll understand this. So let's try. You're singing again in English, and I'm playing in Portuguese. 1, 2, 3, go. Yes. And has anybody moved their position, their understanding from when you first sang? There's some nodding. Okay, I just wanted some confirmation.
From here I can't quite hear the effects
of the piano.
So maybe somebody can tap along, or...
Well, let's do it for you. Let's do it again. Is that okay? Just as quick as I don't have much to say, so let's let you know. Once more in English, and I clap. Well, let me take the story a little further and then help you out. So the concept of the clave, it's actually the rhythms that people play as a clave, and I need to differentiate a little between, what I will call a true clave and what is just a rhythm which is played on the same instrument but doesn't have that exact function. The clave is there to suggest the guide tones of the rhythm. So I'll define guide tones for you harmonically, and then we sing again. Guide tones in harmony are the thirds and the sevenths, the things that give the function of a chord. And for us in rhythmic chords, we have the function of the static chord, the minus, and the dynamic chord, the plus. So it's showing, by me having a phrase which is a subset of the structure, such that it will show the third division of the beat, yeah, the second eighth note, I think you call it, or the second or fourth 16th note, that I can create like a shortcut to understanding the structure. So in this music, let me deal with the Portuguese one, if that's okay, for the moment. Here is the structure. And this is a subset of the structure. It's which people you would say partido alto. It's a particular rhythmic phrase. And it's just a subset of the structure. It's like saying it's a particular set of notes through the chords such that it doesn't just show the root, but it shows where is the third and the seventh, for example. It's showing you whether you're on a plus or a minus. Yep. So let's try, I'll do it with the English one because this is more easier for you to stick on one example. So let's sing the English one, and I'll play something which marks the guide tones to the clave, the guide tones to the structure, and that's what we call the clave. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry, you need a pitch. 2, 3, go. Goes walking, and then she passes each one. Okay, now I realize different people have different abilities to stay in time with me. You're sitting down, so let me give both the. I'm clapping a subset of the structure. Yeah. I'm not clapping the rhythm which you're singing. Let me help you with the pulse here. Yeah, and the clave which I'm going to click. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, my example. So that's in agreement with you, and now I'll play in disagreement with you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're there? You're with me so far?
Except that most of us are singing the song we know and not the song that's on the screen.
That could be true, but you'll have this example to take home and practice. Yeah, I can do it myself if it helps. But would it help if I sang myself and clapped at the same time? Okay, so top example. With this 1, 2, 3, 4. Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and which passes each one she passes goes. Okay, that was me in agreement with my song. Yeah, and I'll move on because I think I'm going to get stuck here. I've been shown the 5 minutes. That's is that what I mean? So there's the question that people, I've seen a lot of song claves. Like, what does this mean? Well, this is what the clave means. You can see the clave on the top. It's showing you a little guide. The guide tones, a very quick guide to what are the rhythmic chords. What is the substructure of the music? It's just a subset of that. All I have to show is the difference between a plus or a minus to be, helpful, to be the correct, clave for the music. And the last beat, we can't tell anything about the last beat. And this explains why, in some places when this rhythm, which came as a clave probably out of the Congo region, other people encountered it and said, hey, this is great. Yeah, this is easy to follow. It has 2 of 5 notes which are on the beat. There's a big contrast to other rhythms. It's like, well, people can follow this even if they haven't had lots of exposure to the culture, lots of kind of entrainment, finding the beat in relation to a particular phrase. So it fits more than one structure, is very useful. Cool so far? So a little bit more information. It's like, how do I collect this information? I learn a lot of songs, transcribe the songs, see what's common between them, a lot of drumming. I'm also very careful about the information I take, that I try not to take the things which are decorative. I try and say, not how does a lead singer sing, someone who's an experienced soloist. So how does a community sing? How does everyone sing? What's the simplest versions? The simplest music I can find, children's songs and so on, often simple. I need to differentiate between a true clave and a phrase that's just part of the style. It's played on a similar instrument. This happens quite a lot. Some cultures, where we hear about these rhythms, some cultures, they don't externalize the clave. There's no instrument that plays that phrase. The musicians don't know what it means. Oh, we don't have that. What's that? They'll argue with you, but they don't actually have the language to talk about it. They don't actually have the instrument. That does not mean that they don't have the substructure. And it really depends which language group you're looking at as to whether this is common, that someone would have a stylized, way of externalizing this substructure in a codified form, in a clave form. The way that you can hear notes of a song and guess or suggest the harmony that would fit the song, you can do this as well with rhythm. You can hear the rhythm of the song and say, that fits this clave, that doesn't fit this clave, as I hope we've done with the girl from Ipanema. Okay, I tried. I had an example here of a song, from Ghana. So I was trying to find examples that related to what we'd done in this week, and Kofi had produced this timeline, the one which is written on the second line with this song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Senua de dende, senua de dende, senua de dende, senu pete pete, senua de dende, senua. Yeah. It's a very kind of simple, and just so you understand, what does that actually mean? It's a code for the people in the community. It doesn't actually give all the information, it just gives enough information for them, but it's connected to the structure. And the plus is assumed, and the minuses are given. And that is much harder for anyone from out of the culture to understand. Whereas the song clave, it's like, well, 2 of the 5 notes end up on the beat. That's going to be your first guess. A sound is close to the beat, and a silence, well, there are many, many silences to find, but there are only 5 sounds to find. So in this, none of those sounds actually fall on the beat. There's a translation of this song. Translation, I don't know which is it. They're both original versions, whatever. Translation in 3 divisions. So for you thinking, oh, what's going on here? There, it's the same song in a 3-division form. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and a 4, and a 1. Senua de dende, senua de dende. And actually, the plus and minus when you make a translation between the 3 divisions and 4 divisions, at the substructural level, all the evidence I have whenever I find songs which have different forms, the plus and minus, they stay there. The rhythmic chord sequence stays there. Okay. But not all songs in all styles are perfectly consistent and match the underlying structure. That would be boring. That's like saying that every note that I play is always in the chord which I'm playing underneath. It's always just, and that's not really the reality. So, next. Oh, it's gone. 1 second. Here's a little song. I'll play it, and I'll flip back to this screen so you can understand what's going on. This is a song by a soca artist that I actually had the pleasure of playing with at some point. Oh, sorry. That's not right. Here we go. There's the clave and the substructure that it represents, the simplest one, plus minus. The style is soca. You like that? So maybe even without knowing any of this detail, you already appreciate, or once you have the timing as your reference, you appreciate agreement and disagreement. So when the verse has got more disagreement than the pre-chorus or the chorus, you understand that's a pattern, a structural pattern of tension and release. And this pattern of tension and release between either the leader and the community, or between one part of a song, the story, which is the verse, and the chorus, which everybody sings. This is a pattern of tension and release, which is revealed by this thing. There are some very basic sequences I can tell you if you ask me later. There's music which has 2 layers of definable activity in plus and minus. There are actually some more chords, but this is our first lesson, so I'm just dealing with 2 chords. And the artistic choices I've described, you can decide how much tension a music needs by deciding how much you would fight the structure. These structures are within communities. It's like you hear somebody from Rio, they're going to sing in the plus, minus, minus, plus. Like they've heard everything in their life in this structure. That it's a phrasing which they take into everything else. They produce stuff which is regularly a subset of that because it's contained in almost every song which they hear. And so when you have mixed cultures, things happen. That sometimes some will say, it's a bit of a mess. And someone goes, oh, no, it's fine, it's fine. This is how we respond to the music, by clapping this. And it doesn't quite fit. What can we gather from this? What did I take from this to say, this would be useful for me as a composer, as a musician? It's like if I discover this, and pretty much all the Latin American musicians, they know this because they have a concept of playing correctly and playing incorrectly, and You know, they talk about the clave. They talk about being inside and being outside the clave. Whoops, sorry, I don't have the right kind of software to present this, but there are some parallels between rhythm and harmony. I just realign my table. There you are. In harmony, you may have the tonic, the reference, okay, we can say that's the one. We have the roots, the beats of the bow. The scale, those are a particular set of, you know, notes which you select from. An accord is only some of those notes of the scale, so that's a collection of specific weights, something that makes a specific rhythmic chord, and that happens within one beat. And you assign to these chords functions, you know, let's say plus or minus, okay, so it's dynamic or static. And you arrange the chord sequence, you know, which is a substructure. A chord is like you would go 1, 6, 2, 5, you know, you can have a little sequence of plus and minus and understand that that's what things are based on. I'm not saying that's where you start and how the music has arrived at this, because really, you sing one part, someone else sings another part, and harmony is a result of what you sing together. So total rhythm is a result of what everybody plays together. But, you know, I'm just giving you kind of an analytical approach. I'm not saying that's how the music is created. So a set of guide tones, which will guide you through the harmony, show you the difference between the chord function. That's what we call the clave, a true clave. And the concept of being inside a rhythm and outside a rhythm, that's the same. That's agreeing with the chords, disagreeing with the chords. Yeah, and this is, you know, controlling your tension release. So your whole structure of music has its inbuilt tension release. That is the clave. It's got some plus, some minus. And then you have your action against that. Am I exactly following this kind of contoured floor, going tension release, or am I riding above it, giving tension all the time in the way that singer, Stetson Wiltshire, he's known as Red Plastic Bag because that's his most famous song. So when we talk about harmonization, it's like we find the chords that fit the song. And rhythmically, we can do the same thing. And that's what we were doing at the beginning. I was giving you different harmonizations, one which worked, one which didn't work, you know, from my perspective. They're both artistic choices, they're all possible, but that's really, you know, the scene for musicians. We've come to the end. This is one of the results of me investigating music like that I would come up with. I'll give you the reference beat. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2. So this music, which sounds pretty close to some detail from Cameroon, I could only rebuild after taking it apart. Yeah, and it's my composition, but it's within a rhythmic structure from Cameroon. It's called Bikutsi, the structure. Here's your little clave. You're going plus, minus, minus. That's my secret clave. And I'm happy to put on a stick a recording from this album, as I made it some time ago, you know, maybe 14 years ago. Everybody wants a copy, just borrow the stick, download, it's cool with me. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. There is time for a very quick question, perhaps.
Thanks very much. Nice examples. It's just a question really about what you hear from your perspective. What do you hear when we do this? That first exercise, the Girl from Ipanema, what if you do that with a Brazilian group? The exercise in reverse, which is Georgia, and most of us here know that song. So what if it happens with songs that we don't know? You know?
What happens to me?
What do you hear?
What do I hear? Well, I've been training myself, you know, to hear rhythmically, let's say. It's not how, you know, I initially heard. I was trained as a classical musician. So, that's the rhythm they're producing. That's the rhythm. You know, do these things fit? You know, you hear the total thing. So you're already hearing degrees of agreement and disagreement. And that's what you're appreciating anyway, even when you don't know. But a lot of people, it's like they focus so much on one part of the music, they don't hear the whole thing. So when you try and be analytical for anybody, whether you're a trained musician or not, it's like sometimes you miss the bigger sound, the bigger picture. So listening to everybody do that, I can hear when I hear when a musician's fighting the rhythm, definitely. I mean, you know, because you're playing in a band and you're playing something and someone plays something from out of the structure, it's a tension. It's difficult to perform against that. Now, it's not impossible, it's part of the music, but it's the kind of later part of the training that you would go through to be able to deal with that situation, to not lose your rhythmic orientation when someone is fighting your rhythm. And it's, you know, it's a very important level to get to. Yeah? Did that answer the question?
Perhaps I will have to suggest that we continue the conversation after the session, but thank you so much. Thanks, Barak.